Hola querido oyente, por favor suscríbete a nuestro canal. Disfruta viendo. Mis padres vivían en una pequeña finca de caballos. Desde la infancia, me encargaba de los caballos y sabía todo al respecto. Mientras ayudaba a mis padres en la finca, también me ocupaba de vender autos usados. A medida que mis padres alcanzaban una edad avanzada, me instaron a mudarme aquí con mi esposa, Sandra. Teníamos un maravilloso hijo, Kevin, que tenía 9 años. Estaba emocionado por la mudanza porque amaba a los caballos. Pero Sandra no estaba contenta con esta decisión. Jason, ¿puedes explicarme por qué diablos nos mudamos aquí? Sandra, mi amor, ¿por qué vuelves a sacar este tema? ¿No estás cansada de apretujarte en ese apartamento en la ruidosa ciudad? Mira a tu alrededor, aquí es hermoso, rodeado de la naturaleza, una amplia casa privada. Puedo llevar un pequeño negocio familiar aquí y seguir gestionando mis propios asuntos. Nunca vi nada malo en la bulliciosa ciudad. Teníamos todas las comodidades de la civilización allí, ¿y aquí? ¿Estiércol de caballo? Querida, no seas tan categórica. Llegarás a gustar este lugar con el tiempo. Sigo sin entender por qué necesitamos esto. ¿Por qué tus padres no vendieron simplemente este lugar con todos los animales? Las ganancias aquí no son significativas, pero el tiempo y el esfuerzo necesarios para gestionarlo son enormes. Cariño, sabes que ha sido el trabajo de toda su vida. No quieren vender esta finca a cualquiera. Todavía podemos mejorar las cosas aquí y ganarnos la vida decentemente. Estoy dispuesta a entender, pero hay tanto por hacer aquí. Y no puedes simplemente bajar a la tienda, está a varios kilómetros de distancia. Sandra, no es un gran problema. Tenemos autos y podemos conducir fácilmente a cualquier lugar, no lleva tanto tiempo. Mira a nuestro hijo. ¿Cómo lo disfruta? ¿Cómo se fascina con los caballos? Eso probablemente sea lo único que me tranquiliza. El aire fresco le hace bien, estoy de acuerdo. Pero para eso, podríamos haber salido a la naturaleza o visitado el zoológico. No teníamos que vivir en un establo. Sandra, mira esta gran y hermosa casa. Y la terraza. Es como un cuento de hadas. Confía en mí, después de un tiempo, no querrás irte de aquí. Ya veremos. Solo para aclarar, no voy a ocuparme del estiércol de caballo. Esta fue tu idea desde el principio. Hazlo tú mismo, contrata gente, pero no me involucres en eso. La actitud de Sandra hacia este lugar ciertamente me preocupaba. Sin embargo, estaba dispuesto a soportarlo, esperando que las cosas se tranquilizaran pronto y todos disfrutáramos de estar aquí. Sandra era una chica de ciudad. Creció en la ciudad y no estaba familiarizada con las complejidades de vivir en una casa privada rodeada de naturaleza. Por un lado, la entendía. Pero estaba seguro de que no querría irse de aquí después de un tiempo. Sandra trabajaba de forma remota para una empresa de cosméticos. Era buena vendiendo productos por teléfono. Disfrutaba del trabajo y podía hacerlo desde cualquier lugar. Con el tiempo, las cosas realmente comenzaron a mejorar. Aprendí a manejar la finca, lo cual no fue fácil, pero lo logré. Sandra comenzó a disfrutar del lugar, viéndolo desde una nueva perspectiva. Teníamos todas las comodidades para una vida cómoda. Me encantaba lo que hacía, y Kevin también estaba interesado en la finca. Nuestro pasatiempo favorito se convirtió en montar a caballo. La zona circundante tenía muchos lugares maravillosos para explorar, montando tranquilamente a caballo y disfrutando de paisajes hermosos. Sandra no mostraba mucho interés en mis asuntos. Pero yo manejaba todo muy bien sin su ayuda. Pude contratar a un par de personas adicionales que me ayudaban. A Sandra no le gustaba montar a caballo, Prefería tomar el sol en el patio o ir a la ciudad a encontrarse con sus amigos. No la detuve, lo más importante era que todos estuvieran contentos. Y así continuó nuestra vida en este lugar extraordinario. Un día, fui a la ciudad para encontrarme con mis amigos, Arek y David, mis compañeros de la universidad. Decidimos pasar el rato en nuestro pub favorito. Siempre era acogedor allí. El dueño del pub cuidaba mucho el lugar, así que siempre estaba limpio y los muebles estaban bien mantenidos. Dinos, Jason, ¿cómo van las cosas en la finca de caballos?, preguntó mi amigo Arek. Chicos, es simplemente maravilloso. Estoy mejorando gradualmente todo aquí. Mi hijo ama todo lo que hago y disfruta este lugar también. Sandra estaba escéptica al principio, pero cambió de opinión bastante rápido. Está feliz con todo ahora. ¿Realmente todo está bien con Sandra?, preguntó David misteriosamente. Sí, todo está genial, no hay problemas en absoluto. Tenemos una vida pacífica y tranquila aquí, a diferencia de la bulliciosa ciudad. ¿Por qué preguntan? Eric y David intercambiaron miradas. Chicos, no me hagan esperar. ¿Qué pasó?, pregunté, preocupado. Bueno, vimos recientemente a Sandra con sus amigos y algunos chicos. Estaba presumiendo de tu finca frente a todos. David y yo también estábamos en ese club. Pero habría sido incómodo acercarnos y saludarla. Como puedo decirlo suavemente, Jason, Sandra coqueteaba bastante con un chico de ese grupo. No sé, tal vez tienen algún tipo de relación abierta, pero parecía muy extraño. Estaba prácticamente pegada a ese chico. Chicos, ¿de qué tonterías están hablando? Esto no puede ser cierto. Obviamente, ustedes han confundido algo. Sandra nunca haría eso, nunca me ha engañado, respondí indignado. Jason, pensamos mucho si contarles o no sobre este incidente. Realmente no es asunto nuestro, pero lo presenciamos. Definitivamente era Sandra, y no confundimos su identidad. Solo somos tus amigos y decidimos contarte. Lo siento por las malas noticias, pero esa es la realidad. Ahora depende de ti decidir qué hacer. Después de esas palabras, mi noche quedó arruinada. No podía entenderlo. Sandra siempre había sido una esposa ejemplar. Claro, tenía sus momentos de mal genio, pero nunca me había dado motivo para tener celos. Siempre confié en ella. Traté de encontrar una explicación lógica cada vez. Quizás mis amigos exageraron su historia. Sin embargo, no podía simplemente tragármelo todo sin discutirlo con Sandra. Recordé la noche de la que hablaban mis amigos. Sandra había llegado a casa bastante tarde esa noche, claramente había bebido bastante. Y había afirmado que había estado en casa de su amiga Jessica. Sandra, cariño, ¿hay algo que quieras decirme?, le pregunté a mi esposa. ¿De qué estás hablando, Jason? Ni siquiera sé cómo reaccionar a esto ni cómo abordarte. Jason, ¿qué está pasando? Puedo ver que estás actuando nervioso y misterioso. Bien, entonces comenzaré. ¿Recuerdas el sábado hace 2 semanas cuando llegaste tarde a casa? Sí, pero ya me disculpé por eso, tomé un poco de tequila de más. ¿Y dónde estabas en ese momento? Jason, ¿qué es esta absurda interrogación? Ya te lo dije, estaba en la casa de mi amiga Jessica. Es verdad, no me estás ocultando nada, pregunté de nuevo. No, ¿qué pasó? Mis amigos te vieron en el club la otra noche. Y me estás diciendo que no estabas en ningún lado. Oh maldición, sí, estábamos en ese maldito club. Honestamente, lamento haber ido yo misma. Lo siento por no habértelo dicho, solo quería olvidarlo. Aunque debería haberlo hecho. Estábamos en casa de Jessica primero, luego las chicas querían ir a la pista de baile, así que me arrastraron. Sabía que alguien me reconocería allí. Jason, por favor, perdóname, no quería sacarlo a colación. Pero realmente no pasó nada. Estaba bastante borracha, pero estaba en control y recuerdo todo. Nunca me permitiría hacer algo así. Así que dile a tus amigos que no inventen cosas, respondió Sandra de manera agresiva. Sandra, si estás ocultando algo más, dímelo aquí y ahora. Quiero saberlo todo. Cariño, todo está bien. No hay problemas en absoluto. Te amo más que a nada y nunca haría algo que pudiera poner en peligro nuestra relación. Esa es la verdad. ¿Por qué necesitaría a alguien más cuando tengo al esposo más maravilloso del mundo? Así que lamento no haber mencionado de inmediato el club, pero definitivamente no pasó nada parecido a eso. Las respuestas de Sandra no me tranquilizaron del todo. Realmente quería creer en sus palabras, pero también conocía bien a mis amigos, no inventarían algo a menos que estuvieran seguros. Me enfrentaba a un dilema. ¿Debía frenar esta investigación o seguir investigando? Sin embargo, no tenía evidencia, solo las palabras de mis amigos, lo cual no era mucho. Sandra parecía decidida a no revelar nada más. Me aseguró su lealtad. Varios pensamientos comenzaron a dar vueltas en mi cabeza. A partir de ese momento, no podía encontrar la paz. Mi confianza empezó a desvanecerse. Mi vida feliz se vio perturbada y no sabía cómo volver a mi estado anterior de calma. Fue bastante angustiante. Pero pronto tuve que llevar a Kevin al parque de diversiones. Decidí usar este viaje como una forma de distraerme de mis preocupaciones cotidianas y ordenar mis pensamientos mientras observaba la emoción de mi hijo. Mientras tanto, Sandra eligió quedarse en casa. Y así, Kevin y yo subimos al coche y nos fuimos. El parque de diversiones no estaba cerca, tuvimos que viajar a otra ciudad y el viaje llevó bastante tiempo. Sin embargo, cuando llegamos, nos llevamos una gran decepción. El parque había cerrado por reparaciones justo antes de nuestra llegada. Kevin estaba profundamente decepcionado, pero le prometí que compraríamos muchas golosinas cuando regresáramos a casa. Y visitaríamos ese parque en otra ocasión. Decidimos no perder más tiempo y regresamos a casa al anochecer. Cuando llegamos a la casa, había un coche desconocido estacionado en el camino de entrada. Kevin estaba dormido en el coche, así que decidí no despertarlo. Salí del coche y me dirigí hacia la casa donde las luces estaban encendidas. Entré y vi velas encendidas en la mesa del comedor. Había platos con restos de comida, 2 copas de vino vacías y una botella de vino a medio terminar. Esta vista me dejó en shock. Lo único que me transmitía esta escena era la infidelidad. Mi corazón se encogió, el sudor frío se formó en mi frente y mis manos temblaban. Dentro de mí surgió una mezcla de rabia y adrenalina. No había nadie en la casa. Salí y vi luz proveniente del casa de huéspedes, con una ventana abierta. Me acerqué y vi a Sandra con un hombre. «Tienes una hermosa casa, Sandra», dijo este tipo. «Sí, Simon, te lo dije. Y esta casa de huéspedes que quería mostrarte, mi esposo la construyó recientemente», respondió Sandra. «Sí, es realmente impresionante. Tu esposo no aparecerá, ¿verdad?» «No te preocupes, Simon llevó a su hijo a los juegos. Está bastante lejos, así que no regresará en un tiempo». «Eso es genial». «Es estúpido, por supuesto. Pero ese es su problema. Alguien en esta vida debe ser un perdedor. Ahora ven a mí, quiero ver algo más», dijo este bastardo y lanzó a mi esposa en el sofá. Si te ha gustado esta historia, por favor pon un like, ayudará a promocionar este video. Saman empezó a tocar suciamente a mi mujer y a arrancarle la ropa. Yo estaba aún más sorprendido. Sandra, claramente no se opuso y comenzó a gemir de placer. Mi ira empezó a presionarme cada vez más. Apretando los dientes, fui al establo, elegí mi mejor caballo, cogí la cuerda y salté sobre él. Y cabalgué hasta esta casa y me apeé del caballo. Até un extremo de la cuerda a la silla de montar y en el otro extremo hice un lazo de apriete. Cuando irrumpí en estos bastardos, ya se divertían salvajemente desnudos. Con un hábil movimiento, les eché el lazo alrededor de las piernas y lo apreté. Luego salí corriendo, monté en mi caballo y corrí hacia el camino del bosque. Jason, por favor, gritó Sandra, deslizando el culo por los baches. Cerrad la boca y no chilléis. Vamos a dar un paseo. Dije. Arrastré a estos bastardos por el camino. Gritaron de dolor e intentaron liberarse. Pero no tuvieron éxito. Al cabo de un rato, sin embargo, me detuve. Los bastardos arañados y sucios me miraron con ojos asustados. Jason, por favor, perdóname. Sandra empezó a disculparse. ¿Para qué pides perdón? Ahora ya no es necesario. ¿Por qué no me creí completamente, que eras una zorra mentirosa y follando a mis espaldas? ¿Es así como me quieres? ¿Es así como nunca me engañas ni me pones los cuernos? ¿Es por eso que no necesitas a nadie más que a mí? Hablé con rabia. Jason, tienes razón en todo. Suéltame. Deja de quejarte. Puedes irte, no quiero volver a verte. Y tú, bastardo, si alguna vez te vuelvo a ver, definitivamente te arrancaré la cabeza. Definitivamente te arrancaré la cabeza, puedes estar seguro de eso. Dije y pateé a este bastardo con todas mis fuerzas, con el pie en el estómago. No vuelvas a casa. Quemaré todas las cosas. Coge tu impresionante coche. Y te aconsejo que te des prisa. Si todavía está parado en una hora, lo quemaré también. Ahora piérdete. Dije y dejé a estos bastardos desnudos en medio de bosque. Cuando ya estaba en casa, vacié la gasolina del coche de esos hijos de puta, seguro que no pueden hacer. Llegar al pueblo y parar con el culo desnudo en medio de un camino de campo donde el tráfico es poco frecuente. Y quemé sus teléfonos y sus ropas. A través de las llamas vi a esos cabrones desnudos y asustados. Corrieron histéricos hacia el coche y se fueron. Volví al coche y recogí a Kevin, que estaba durmiendo profundamente. Poco después, me divorcié de Sandra. Ella no pretendía comunicarse con Kevin. Pero fue incluso bueno. Con mi hijo, continuamos una vida feliz. Después de un tiempo, me enteré de que Sandra todavía estaba con ese bastardo, Saman. Este bastardo trabajaba en la construcción y ganaba bastante dinero. Pero después de un tiempo, me enteré de que este bastardo fue atrapado en un gran soborno para la construcción en un lugar ilegal. Lo metieron encarcelado durante mucho tiempo. A pesar de que ya no me importaba, todavía era muy agradable que este bastardo estaba entre rejas. Aún más tarde, oí que este bastardo fue liberado, pero no permaneció libre durante mucho tiempo. Él fue atropellado por un coche, se rompió casi todos los huesos, no sobrevivió. Sandra tampoco tuvo una gran vida. Por mis conocidos supe que la echaron de un piso de alquiler por impago. Ella deambuló entre amigos en busca de ayuda, pero ya nadie confiaba en ella. Se convirtió en una sucia vagabunda. Me dijeron que si la hubiera visto, seguramente no la habría reconocido. No me interesado en el destino ulterior de Sandra, pero estaba claro que ya nada bueno brillaría en su vida. Pude sobrevivir a esta vil traición. Incluso conseguí conocer a Michelle, que adoraba los caballos. Y era mucho más feliz con ella que con Sandra. Michelle me ayudó a olvidar toda aquella traición. Nosotras, a menudo montábamos a caballo en familia. A Kevin le gustaba mucho Michelle. Aunque no la llamaba mamá, ella reemplazó completamente a Sandra para él. Michelle era una madre mucho mejor, estaba, a mí y a Kevin, lo que no podía sino alegrarme. Y me las arreglé para mejorar mi negocio, los ingresos se hizo mucho mayor, por lo que mi vida se hizo aún mejor que antes de. Si te ha gustado esta historia, por favor dale me gusta y deja cualquier comentario. Esto es importante para nosotros y ayudará a promover este video. Gracias por vernos.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. and he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.